Something is about to switch on inside you. Not gradually, not in the slow, unspooling way that most changes announce themselves, but with the particular snap of a circuit completing. The kind of shift that you feel before you understand it, the kind that registers in your chest before it registers in your mind. If you have been moving through the last several days with a low hum of anticipation in your body, with the sensation that something is being assembled in the dark and is almost ready to show itself, what you are feeling is not anxiety and it is not restlessness. It is your nervous system picking up a signal from the sky. The sky on April 14, 2026 is in the final stages of loading something that is going to change the architecture of what comes next. And you are sitting in the room where the screen is about to light up. This is not a quiet day. It does not have the quality of a gentle Tuesday that asks nothing of you and delivers nothing memorable. It is the day that Mercury, the planet that governs how you think, how you speak, what you notice, and how quickly your mind moves between one point and the next, steps across the border from Pisces into Aries. That crossing happens at 11:22 in the evening, and the hours leading up to it carry the particular charge of a held breath. But the crossing is not the only thing. It is the thing that arrives on top of everything else, the final piece of a configuration that has been building throughout this entire month, that reaches its first true crescendo in 3 days with a solar eclipse in Aries on April 17th. You are not watching one event today. You are watching the ignition sequence of a launch. The difference between where you were 10 days ago and where you are standing now is already significant. Mars entered Aries on April 9th and brought the planet of action into the sign it rules, which means that for the past 5 days the collective drive has been sharper, more direct, less patient with delays and detours. Today, Mercury steps out of the ocean and into the fire. The mind that has been moving through feeling finally acquires the speed and clarity of fire. And 3 days after that, a solar eclipse opens a new cycle in Aries, so loaded with planetary presence that it will be spoken about by astrologers for years. What is actually loading right now is not just an event. It is a new version of your relationship with your own thinking, with your own voice, with your own nerve. And once it finishes loading, you will not operate from the same mental coordinates as you did before. Your soul chose this lifetime with purpose. Your birth chart is the map it left behind. Every placement, every angle, every planetary signature in your natal chart tells a story written in the stars long before you drew your first breath. This is a deeply personal astrology reading built from the exact moment and place of your birth. It decodes your sun, moon, and rising, dives into your soul's focus area in love, career, or spiritual path, surfaces hidden karmic patterns, and delivers a month-by-month forecast for 2026 mapped directly to your natal chart. Delivered as an audio reading and a written report to your inbox within 48 hours. The link is below. Mercury enters Aries tonight, and what that means for you practically, emotionally, and mentally is more significant than most people realize in the moment. Mercury is the fastest of the personal planets. It governs the way you process experience, the way you turn what you observe into what you understand, the words that you reach for when you need to communicate what is happening inside you, and the speed at which your attention moves from one subject to the next. When Mercury is in Pisces, all of those functions are filtered through water, through feeling, through the particular kind of knowing that cannot always produce a reason. Mercury in Pisces thinks in images. It understands through resonance. Its intelligence is real and often profound, but it operates slowly, indirectly, and with a tolerance for ambiguity that can feel like confusion to anyone waiting for a clear and immediate answer. Mercury in Pisces is also, technically, in the sign where it is considered to be in both decrement and fall. That is the astrologer's way of saying that the sign is not the natural territory of the planet, that the planet has to work harder and differently in that environment, that the tools it usually reaches for are not quite as sharp as they are elsewhere. This does not mean that Mercury in Pisces is without value. The understanding that moves through water is some of the most honest and most layered understanding available to human consciousness. But it does mean that the mind operating in that sign has been navigating conditions that were, in certain important ways, less than ideal for quick decisions, sharp speech, or the confident declaration of what you actually think. You may have felt this. The past several weeks may have carried a quality of mental softness, not the softness of ignorance, but the softness of too much information arriving through too many channels at once, none of it entirely separable from the emotional field it was submerged in. You may have noticed that forming a clear opinion felt harder than usual, that expressing yourself precisely seemed to cost more energy than it should, that the most honest things you understood about a situation were things you could feel but not quite say. Tonight that changes. Mercury crossing into Aries does not simply shift the sign. It shifts the entire orientation of the mind. Aries is the first sign of the Zodiac, the sign of the original impulse, of action, before reflection, of the thought that arrives not from careful analysis, but from the instinctive knowing of someone who is responding in real time to what is directly in front of them. Mercury in Aries does not hesitate. It does not soften its language to protect anyone's comfort. It does not stay in the question indefinitely waiting for certainty. It speaks from the first thought, moves from the immediate conclusion, and trusts that directness is not rudeness, but respect for everyone's time, including its own. What this means for the days ahead is that ideas which have been floating in your consciousness without traction are about to land. Opinions you have been circling without committing to will suddenly feel possible to declare. Conversations you have been approaching with excessive care and insufficient confidence will shift in tone. You will notice in the coming days that speaking what you actually think has become easier, almost automatic. That the right words arrive before you have time to second-guess them. That the version of you who knows what it thinks and says so without apology has stepped back into the driver's seat. There is a caveat, as there always is with Aries energy. Mercury in Aries is fast, and it is honest, and it is brave. But it can also be impatient in ways that skip over nuance, and impulsive in ways that say the true thing before the true thing has been said at the right moment. Use the clarity, trust the directness, and give the words a single breath of consideration before they leave you, not to water them down but to ensure they are aimed accurately. The Sabian symbol for the first degree of Aries, the degree Mercury enters tonight, is a woman just risen from the sea. A seal is embracing her. This is one of the most evocative images in the Sabian system. It is the image of something emerging from the water and being received by what lived there. This is Mercury tonight, rising from the water of Pisces with the full intelligence of everything it absorbed there, entering the fire of Aries not as an escape from death, but as a new application of it. What you learned in the quiet, what you understood through feeling, what moved through you in the wordless register of the past weeks. All of that comes with you, but now it has a voice. The solar eclipse in Aries arrives on April 17th at 27 degrees of the sign, and its presence 3 days from now is already doing something to the atmosphere that you can feel if you are paying attention. Eclipses do not begin at the moment they are exact, they build. They release their pressure gradually into the days and weeks before and after the peak, which means that the field you are moving through today is not ordinary April 14th energy. It is April 14th energy inside an eclipse corridor, and that distinction changes everything about how the day operates. A solar eclipse is a new moon that has been amplified by the alignment of the sun, moon, and earth in a way that creates a new cycle more forceful than a regular lunation. In astrology, this creates the conditions for a beginning that is not merely personal, but collective and fated. A new cycle that has been seeded by forces larger than individual choice and individual timing. The new moon that will occur on April 17th is not just another monthly reset. It is an initiation point, a place in the sky's calendar where old patterns do not simply pause, but actually collapse, where the structures that were supporting the version of your life that is ending become unavailable, not as punishment, but as necessity, because you cannot build the new chapter while the old scaffolding is still standing. 3 days before that collapse and that opening, the air has the quality of the moments before a very large door swings open. You can feel the pressure differential on your skin even before you see the door move. This is what today carries. The anticipation of an irreversible pivot. The knowledge, working below the level of conscious thought, that something is ending and something else is about to begin, and that the two events are happening simultaneously, that the ending is not a pause before the beginning, but the beginning's own first movement. For many people, the days leading up to an eclipse are experienced as a period of unusual clarity about what is no longer working. Relationships that were tolerable become intolerable. Situations that were bearable become unbearable. This is not life deteriorating. This is your soul engaging the ejection mechanism that the eclipse requires in order to function properly. In order to begin a new cycle that actually fits who you are becoming, the old cycle must be clearly identified as finished. And the days before an eclipse are when that identification happens with unusual precision. What in your life has been slowly becoming too small for you? What arrangement, what dynamic, what version of your routine or your role or your relationship to your own ambition has been pressing against the inside of your current situation, asking for more room than the current container allows? The eclipse is not creating that pressure, it is revealing it, and today as Mercury prepares to cross into the fire and the eclipse corridor thickens around you, that revelation is arriving not as crisis but as clarity. A solar eclipse in Aries does not initiate a new beginning in some area of life that is safely external to your core identity. It initiates a new beginning in you, in the way you understand yourself, in the way you move through your days as a person with a particular frequency and a particular set of things that are genuinely yours versus the things you have been carrying for everyone else. A solar eclipse in Aries asks, at the deepest level it can reach, who are you when you stop performing the version of yourself that was built for the world's approval rather than your own integrity? The answer to that question is what the eclipse is preparing to install, and today is the day the installation begins. If you look at the sky on April 14th, you will see something that does not happen often. The sign of Aries currently holds Mars, Saturn, Neptune, and as of tonight, Mercury. 4 planets in the same sign at once, including 2 outer planets whose presence in any sign extends across years rather than weeks. This convergence is happening in the sign that governs beginnings, identity, courage, and the first principle of selfhood. Mars entered Aries on April 9th, which is Mars in the sign it rules. A planet in its own sign has full access to its natural strength, its most complete expression, its most unfiltered application of its own principles. Mars in Aries is not the restrained or compromised version of Martian energy. It is Mars at its most honest and its most capable. Bold, direct, uninterested in pretending that obstacles are not obstacles, ready to begin, ready to move, ready to act on what has been sitting in the waiting room of intention for far too long. Saturn arrived in Aries in February, and its presence here carries a different quality entirely. Saturn does not rush. It does not celebrate the beginning for the excitement of beginning. Saturn is the planet that shows up after the initial fire and asks what you are actually prepared to sustain. What structures you have genuinely built that can carry the weight of what you want to create. Whether the thing you are calling a new chapter is a real new chapter or a restated version of an old one wearing new language. Saturn in Aries is the voice in the room that says, I am not here to stop you from beginning. I am here to make sure that what you begin can actually become something. Neptune has been in Aries since early in 2026, and its presence here is the strangest, and in some ways the most significant of all the Aries placements. Neptune in Aries dissolves the boundaries of the self in ways that are difficult to articulate, but very easy to feel. The question of who you are, separate from who you perform being, has been pressing itself into your consciousness through channels that do not announce themselves as philosophical inquiry, through dreams, through a growing dissatisfaction with things that once felt like a reliable definition of your life, through the dawning awareness that the version of yourself you have been presenting to the world is not false exactly, but is also not complete. Neptune in Aries is the slow dissolving of the performed self. And now Mercury enters this crowded sign tonight. When Mercury enters Aries, it brings the power of language into the territory that Mars, Saturn, and Neptune have been preparing. It gives words to the courage that Mars has been building. It gives voice to the accountability that Saturn has been requiring. It gives expression to the dissolution that Neptune has been conducting. The mind arrives in the fire and says, "Now we can talk about this. Now we can name what is actually happening. Now the understanding can become a sentence, and the sentence can become a decision, and the decision can become a life." This is why the sky is loading something big. Because when 4 planets occupy the sign of the self simultaneously, when those 4 planets represent drive, discipline, vision, and language, when they are all present in the days immediately preceding a solar eclipse, what is being loaded is not a small update to an existing system. It is a new operating platform for the way you understand yourself and act from that understanding. Not everything in the sky today is fire. And that is important because fire without the steadying presence of other elements can consume rather than illuminate. The planetary picture today is not simply an Aries accumulation. It is a balance between the fire of what is beginning and the stability of what holds everything together while it begins. Venus is in Taurus. Venus rules Taurus, which means that the planet of beauty, connection, value, and the things we genuinely love is operating from its deepest competence right now. Venus in Taurus knows what is real. It knows the difference between something that glitters and something that endures. It knows through the body, through the senses, through the particular quiet intelligence of someone who has stopped chasing what looks good and started trusting what feels true. In a sky crackling with Aries urgency and the approaching pressure of a solar eclipse, Venus in Taurus is the anchor. It is the part of the day that keeps the desire for beginning connected to the understanding of what is genuinely worth beginning. Venus in Taurus is saying, move forward, yes, but toward something real. Towards something your hands and your body and your deepest sense of value can confirm is worth the fire you are about to bring to it. Jupiter is in Cancer, in the final months of a transit that has been expanding emotional capacity since last year. Jupiter in Cancer has been asking each of us to grow in the direction of genuine belonging, to expand our sense of what home means, not only as a physical address but as an interior condition, the place within you where you are at rest, where you are not performing, where the accumulation of your actual experience is allowed to matter. As the Aries fire builds today, Jupiter in Cancer is the warmth that ensures the fire is building towards something that genuinely nourishes, not simply something that burns. The moon today is in Pisces, in its waning crescent phase, approaching the new moon eclipse with the quiet of something in its final hours before release. A waning crescent moon in Pisces is one of the most interior experiences the lunar cycle offers. It is the moon at its most permeable, most dissolved into the emotional field of everything around it. And yet, in the context of today's powerful Aries energy, the Pisces moon is not a contradiction. It is a necessary counterweight. The emotional field is soft today, even as the mental and volitional field is about to become very sharp. You may find that beneath the clarity arriving with Mercury's crossing, there is still a layer of feeling that needs a few more hours to complete its processing before the new cycle claims its full territory. Honor that. The Pisces moon is the final exhalation before Aries begins to inhale. What this means practically is that today has a dual quality. The surface of the day will increasingly carry the signature of the fire that is gathering, the quickening of thought, the sharpening of purpose, the approaching sense of ignition. But underneath, in the quiet below the quickening, there is still the water of what has been passing through you during this entire season of Piscean influence on the inner planets. Mercury's crossing tonight does not erase that water. It gives it a new medium for expression. For Aries, this is your season and it is becoming more yours by the day. Mercury entering your sign tonight is the arrival of the planetary force that gives your impulses a language. You have been feeling the urgency of the Aries stellium in your body, in your drive, in the particular restlessness of someone who is ready to go but has not yet found the words for the destination. Tonight that changes, the words are coming. And in 3 days, the eclipse in your sign initiates one of the most significant new cycles of the next several years in your personal life. The new chapter beginning now is not about what you do. It is about who you are when you finally let yourself be that person without apology. For Taurus, Venus in your sign is your anchor through all of this Aries fire. You know what you value. You know what is genuinely worth building toward. The eclipse in Aries is activating your 12th house, the house of what completes itself in silence, what releases itself without ceremony, what ends in the private interior before it becomes visible externally. Something is finishing in you, and it does not need an audience. The wisdom arriving today is that not every transformation announces itself. For Gemini, Mercury is your ruling planet, and its crossing into Aries tonight is a personal event for you. In a way it is not quite for anyone else. The mind waking up in fire tonight is your mind, and what it is waking up inside of is your 11th house of community, collective vision, and the future you are trying to build alongside people who understand what you are actually working toward. The eclipse in Aries is lighting up this same territory. The voice you find tonight is the voice that will help you articulate what you want to build together. For Cancer, Jupiter in your sign is the defining planetary influence of this entire period, and it continues its generous expansion of your emotional world. Mercury entering Aries activates your 10th house of career and public role. The eclipse in Aries lands in this same territory. Something about your professional life or your relationship to the work that defines you publicly is entering a new cycle. Jupiter in your sign ensures that whatever you are beginning from here carries the depth and genuine emotional investment that makes external achievement mean something. For Leo, Mercury entering Aries tonight activates your 9th house of philosophy, higher understanding, and the beliefs you live by. The eclipse in Aries is lighting up this exact territory. Something about the framework you have been using to navigate your life is shifting. A belief that has been doing organizational work in your inner life may be revealed as insufficient for the chapter you are entering. What takes its place will be larger, more honest, and more genuinely your own, rather than borrowed from a framework you inherited rather than chose. 4. Virgo, the eclipse in Aries lands in your 8th house, the house of deep transformation and the territory of life that asks for complete vulnerability in order to be entered. Mercury entering Aries brings language to what has been an inarticulate but very present pressure in this part of your life. Something beneath the surface is ready to be named. Something in the financial or psychological or deeply intimate dimension of your life is preparing to shift with the kind of quiet finality you recognize as real change rather than temporary fluctuation. For Libra, Mercury entering Aries tonight activates your 7th house of partnership and commitment. The eclipse in Aries is landing in this exact territory. A new cycle in the realm of relationship is beginning. The new cycle in the 7th house requires a version of you who brings more of your own self into partnership rather than shaping yourself around the other person's shape. The way you show up in your closest connections is entering a genuinely new phase, one in which the habitual accommodating of the old dynamic is no longer the default setting. For Scorpio, Mercury entering Aries tonight activates your 6th house of daily routine, body, and the small, consistent choices that build into a life over time. The eclipse in Aries lights up this same territory. Something in your routine, your health, or your approach to work is entering a genuine new chapter. The beginning here is quiet but cumulative. The small choices made in the days after this eclipse will have disproportionate long-term importance. For Sagittarius, Mercury entering Aries tonight lights up your 5th house of creativity, self-expression, and the dimension of life that exists not in service of productivity, but simply in the pleasure of being alive and making something from that aliveness. The eclipse in Aries lands in this same house. Something creative is ready to emerge. Something that has been in the ideas folder, in the back of the imagination waiting for permission. The eclipse is the permission. Mercury is the voice. For Capricorn, Mercury entering Aries tonight activates your fourth house of home, family, and emotional foundation. The eclipse in Aries is landing in this deeply personal territory. A new cycle in the realm of home, or the emotional structure that underlies everything you build in the outer world, is beginning. This may be a literal change in where or how you live, or it may be entirely interior, a change in the foundation of your inner life that does not immediately produce any visible external event, but changes everything about the ground you are building on. For Aquarius, Mercury entering Aries tonight activates your third house of communication and the daily exchange of ideas and information that keeps the mind engaged with the world. The eclipse in Aries is lighting up this territory. A new cycle in the way you communicate and perceive is beginning. What you start saying in the days after this eclipse will matter. Pay attention to the ideas that arrive. They are seeds of the new cycle. For Pisces, the moon in your sign today is the final waning crescent of a lunar cycle that has asked a great deal of you emotionally. The eclipse in Aries activates your second house of worth, resources, and the fundamental question of what you believe you deserve. Something about your relationship to your own value is entering a new chapter. The eclipse here asks whether you have been accepting the material and emotional conditions that actually match who you are, or whether you have been underselling yourself. The new cycle beginning in 3 days is a cycle of recognition, of claiming your worth, of building a life whose conditions actually reflect the depth of what you carry. The interval between tonight and April 17th is not simply waiting time, it is working time. The eclipse does not arrive at a destination. It arrives at a state of readiness that the days before it have been building. What you do with the energy available between Mercury's crossing tonight and the solar eclipse on Friday determines the quality of the new cycle you step into. The first day after Mercury enters Aries, April 15th, carries the mental sharpening in its most preliminary form. The thoughts that have been swimming will begin to take shape. The opinions that have been forming in the water will start to feel sayable. You may find yourself in conversations that feel different from the ones you have been having recently. More direct, less labored, less careful in the sense of careful meaning, hedged and qualified and protected. Let the directness happen. Let the thoughts arrive without the usual delay of self-editing before they have even formed. April 16th brings Mercury into contact with the approaching eclipse degree, and the sense that something is imminent will intensify. You may feel restless on this day, not the restlessness of uncertainty, but the restlessness of someone who is ready and waiting for the starting signal. This is a good day to write, to speak aloud what you are ready to begin, to name, even in the privacy of your own journal or your own unrecorded conversation with yourself, the specific shape of what you are calling in, what you are releasing, what you are declaring the new chapter to be about. April 17th, the day of the eclipse itself, is the day of the threshold. The solar eclipse at 27 degrees of Aries is the new moon that contains multitudes, the beginning that carries everything the entire Aries stellium has been building toward, compressed into a single initiating moment. The eclipse at 27 degrees carries the Sabian image of a large disappointed audience, which is a remarkable image for a new beginning and one worth considering carefully. The image is of expectation that has not been met, of a crowd that came waiting for a particular show and found something other than what they came for. In the language of eclipse initiations, this is the beginning of a cycle that will require you to disappoint the audience, to stop performing for the expectations of others, and to begin building something that may initially confuse those who had a particular version of you in mind. The new chapter beginning in the eclipse is not designed for the audience, it is designed for you. Saturn, at approximately 7 degrees of Aries, holds its structural influence over the entire field. And on April 19th, Mars and Saturn form an exact conjunction in Aries, adding the dimension of serious long-term commitment to the territory of the new beginning. The eclipse plants the seed. The Mars-Saturn conjunction 2 days later is the first accounting for what that seed is going to require in terms of real, sustained, grounded effort. The beginning is not free, it costs something. And the sky makes sure you understand that within 48 hours of the initiation, this is actually an act of mercy, not of severity. A beginning that is followed immediately by an honest accounting of its costs is a beginning that is protected from the inflation that sometimes follows eclipse energy. The Mars-Saturn conjunction after the eclipse is the sky's way of making sure that what begins in the fire of April 17th can be built upon in the months ahead. That the new chapter is not simply a beautiful initiating vision, but a genuine structural beginning that will carry weight over time. There is also something worth naming about the way this entire sequence unfolds inside a sky, where Venus in Taurus is providing genuine gravitational stability. Venus in Taurus does not get swept up in the urgency of Aries stellium energy. It remains connected to what is actually worth having, what the body and the senses and the deepest knowing of genuine value confirm as real. In the days of the eclipse corridor, Venus in Taurus keeps the new beginning aimed at something that can actually nourish you rather than simply excite you. Keep one hand on what you know is true, what you can feel and confirm is real, even as the other hand reaches into the fire of what is beginning. The beginning is real. The opportunity is genuine. The sky has been loading this moment across an entire season of preparation, and what arrives on April 17th is the completion of something that has been in progress since the very first day Aries season began. Every piece of the April sky has been a part of this, and you have been living inside the preparation even on the days when the preparation felt like turbulence or the particular disorientation of standing in a room that is rearranging itself without your direction. The room is almost done rearranging. On the other side of the eclipse, the furniture will be where it belongs. Tonight, Mercury enters Aries. The mind wakes up in fire. The words come back with their full strength and their full speed. And in 3 days, the eclipse opens the door that the entire season has been walking toward. You do not have to understand all of it right now. You only have to stay in the room and let it finish loading. The new chapter is nearly ready. Trust what is building. Trust the fire. Trust the sequence. The sky does not assemble things this deliberately without purpose, and the purpose is you. Something is about to switch on. It was always going to switch on here. The screen, when it lights up, will show you exactly what you came here to begin. Thank you for watching. If this message arrived at the right time for you, leave a comment below and subscribe to the channel. The sky ahead continues to move in extraordinary ways, and the weeks following this eclipse will be some of the most significant of this entire year. Stay here for all of it.